My name is Rebecca Martinez, and at 28, I never expected my father's birthday dinner would become the moment I finally proved my mother wrong about everything she'd ever believed about me. I never expected what should have been a simple family celebration would turn into the most satisfying vindication of my entire life. Standing in the elegant lobby of Romano's, the upscale Italian restaurant where we'd gathered to celebrate Dad's 55th birthday, should have been simply joyful. The warm lighting cast a golden glow over the marble floors, and the soft murmur of conversation mixed with clinking glasses created the perfect ambience for what was supposed to be a peaceful family dinner. But years of being dismissed, overlooked, and treated like the family disappointment had built up to this moment. The weight of every snide comment, every dismissive gesture, every time I'd been made to feel like I wasn't good enough pressed down on my shoulders as I watched my mother fuss over my younger sister Emma, adjusting her designer dress and praising her recent promotion at the law firm. I still hear my mother's cold words echoing in my mind from just an hour earlier. "Rebecca, honey, maybe you should reconsider coming tonight. This place is quite expensive, and I know money's been tight for you. We don't want you to feel uncomfortable when the check comes." The memory of that phone call still makes my stomach clench. She'd delivered those words with the same tone she'd used my entire life, that careful, condescending sweetness that masked her complete lack of faith in me. It was the same voice she'd used when she told me I'd never amount to anything, that my dreams were too big for someone like me. But before I reveal what made my mother's face turn ghostly pale when the maitre d' approached our table, let me tell you how I got here. Because if you've ever had to fight twice as hard to prove yourself, if you've ever been the one everyone counted out, then you'll understand why this moment meant everything to me. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments about a time you proved someone wrong. Your support means the world to me. I grew up in what appeared to be a picture-perfect family in Austin, Texas. Our ranch-style home in the suburbs came complete with a manicured lawn, 2 cars in the driveway, and Christmas card photos that painted us as the ideal American family. My father, Miguel Martinez, worked as a civil engineer, while my mother, Patricia, managed the administrative side of a successful dental practice. We weren't wealthy by any means, but we were solidly middle class, comfortable enough that financial stress shouldn't have been a constant worry. But appearances can be deceiving. Emma, my sister who's 3 years younger than me, was born to be everything our parents valued. With her thick, dark hair that always fell perfectly into place, her naturally slim figure, and her effortless academic achievements, she embodied their definition of success. She was the daughter who brought home straight A's without breaking a sweat, who won student council elections, who dated the quarterback, and who got into UT Austin with a partial scholarship. I, on the other hand, was the daughter who had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. My grades were good, B's and B+s mostly, but they weren't Emma's A's. I played soccer, but I wasn't the star player. I was involved in student activities, but I wasn't the president of anything. In my parents' eyes, especially my mother's, I was the daughter who was just adequate. The differential treatment started early and continued throughout my childhood. When Emma needed a new laptop for school, it appeared within days. When I needed one, I heard lectures about fiscal responsibility and had to prove I really needed it. Emma's accomplishments were celebrated with dinner parties and phone calls to relatives. Mine were acknowledged with a pat on the head and a "that's nice, honey." I remember vividly the night of my high school graduation. I had worked my butt off to graduate with a 3.7 GPA, earned a scholarship to Texas State University, and had been accepted into their business program. I was proud of myself, excited about my future, and hoping, maybe foolishly, that my parents would finally see my potential. The dinner that night was at Emma's favorite restaurant, despite it being my graduation. When Emma mentioned she was nervous about her SATs, which were still a year away, the entire conversation shifted to her future plans, her potential colleges, her bright prospects. My graduation became background noise to Emma's hypothetical achievements. "Rebecca's doing fine," my mother said when a family friend asked about my plans. "She's going to state. It's a good school for her level." Her level. Those words stung then, and they still sting now. As if I wasn't capable of anything more, as if my dreams and ambitions were cute but unrealistic. The pattern continued through college. Emma's acceptance to UT was celebrated with a party. My dean's list achievements were met with "That's wonderful, honey," before the conversation inevitably turned to Emma's internship opportunities or her boyfriend or her latest accomplishment. After graduation, I moved to Dallas to start my career in marketing. I worked for a small firm, learning everything I could about digital marketing, social media management, and client relations. I wasn't making much money, but I was passionate about what I was doing and good at it. Meanwhile, Emma started law school, and suddenly every family gathering became about her case studies, her internships, her summer associate positions. "Rebecca's doing well too," my mother would say when people asked about both of us. "She's in marketing, I think. Something with computers. Something with computers." As if my entire career, my expertise, my passion could be reduced to something so vague and dismissive. The breaking point came 3 years ago, during what should have been a moment of celebration. I had just landed my dream job as the digital marketing director for a growing restaurant group. It was a significant promotion, a substantial salary increase, and exactly the kind of opportunity I'd been working toward for years. I called my parents, excited to share the news, expecting, hoping, for some recognition of my achievement. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," my mother said, her voice carrying that familiar tone of polite disinterest. "What kind of restaurants?" "It's a group that owns several high-end establishments in Dallas and Houston. They're expanding into Austin soon. The salary is really good, and there's potential for equity if the company continues to grow." "Oh, that's nice. You know, Emma just got offered a position at a top law firm here in Austin. The starting salary is 6 figures, and they're already talking about a partnership track." And there it was. My moment of triumph, reduced to a stepping stone for praising Emma's success. But the worst part came later that evening when I heard my mother on the phone with my aunt, talking about both of us. "Emma's going to be so successful," she said. "The law firm is lucky to have her. She's going to make partner before she's 35. I just know it. And Rebecca, well, she's trying her best. She got some job at restaurants or something. I just hope she can finally make ends meet. She's trying her best." Those words hit me like a physical blow. Not "she's successful," or "she's talented," or "I'm proud of her." Just "she's trying her best," as if my achievements were the result of effort rather than ability, as if I was doing the best I could with limited capabilities. That night, I made a decision. I was done trying to prove myself to people who had already decided I wasn't worth believing in. I was going to succeed on my own terms, and when I did, it would be so undeniable that even my mother would have to acknowledge it. Drop a comment below if you've ever felt overlooked by your own family. Sometimes the people who should support us the most are the ones who doubt us the hardest. Working for the restaurant group opened my eyes to the industry in ways I'd never expected. I wasn't just creating marketing campaigns. I was learning about operations, supply chain management, customer service, and financial planning. I absorb every piece of information like a sponge, staying late to observe dinner service, coming in early to meet with suppliers, and spending weekends analyzing customer data and market trends. My boss, David Chin, was the first person in my professional life who truly saw my potential. He was the CEO and founder of the restaurant group, a second-generation immigrant who had built his business from a single food truck into a multi-million-dollar operation. He valued hard work, creativity, and results over pedigree or appearances. "Rebecca," he told me during my 6-month review, "you have something special. You understand this business in a way that most people never will. You see the big picture, but you also pay attention to details. Have you ever thought about opening your own place?" The question caught me off guard. Own my own restaurant? It seemed impossible, like something people like me didn't do. "I don't have the capital," I said, "or the experience running a kitchen." "Capital can be found," he replied. "And you don't need to be a chef to own a restaurant. You need to be a leader, a visionary, someone who understands what customers want and how to deliver it. You have those skills." He was right about the capital. Over the next year, as I continued to excel in my role and take on more responsibilities, David began including me in investor meetings and expansion planning sessions. I learned about restaurant financing, franchise models, and partnership structures. I also started developing my own concept, a casual fine dining restaurant that would focus on locally sourced ingredients, innovative flavor combinations, and an atmosphere that felt both elegant and approachable. The idea for Romano's came to me during a particularly stressful week when I was working 18-hour days to launch a new location. I was surviving on takeout and restaurant meals, and I realized there was a gap in the market for a place that offered restaurant-quality food in a more relaxed, accessible setting. Not quite fine dining, but definitely a step above casual. A place where families could celebrate special occasions without feeling intimidated, where couples could have a romantic dinner without breaking the bank, where friends could gather for a memorable meal. I started sketching out business plans during my lunch breaks, researching locations during my commute, and developing menu concepts on weekends. The more I worked on it, the more excited I became. This wasn't just a business opportunity. It was my chance to create something meaningful, something that would serve my community and showcase my abilities. David noticed my enthusiasm and made me an offer that changed everything. He would be my primary investor and mentor, providing the capital and guidance I needed to launch Romano's, in exchange for a 40% stake in the business. I would maintain majority ownership and complete operational control. "I believe in you, Rebecca," he said as we shook hands on the deal. "I think you're going to build something special." Those words meant more to me than any praise I'd ever received from my family. Here was someone who had achieved tremendous success in the restaurant industry, and he was betting on me, investing in my vision, supporting my dreams. The next 18 months were a whirlwind of 12-hour days, 7-day weeks, and constant learning. I threw myself into every aspect of opening Romano's with an intensity that surprised even me. I toured dozens of potential locations before finding the perfect space, a former bank building in downtown Austin with high ceilings, original hardwood floors, and enough character to feel unique, but not so much that it would limit our design options. I worked with architects and contractors to design a space that felt warm and inviting while maintaining an air of sophistication. I hired and trained staff, developed systems for everything from inventory management to customer service, and created marketing campaigns that would introduce Romano's to Austin's competitive restaurant scene. The hardest part was the kitchen. While I didn't need to be a chef, I needed to understand how a professional kitchen operated and find the right head chef to execute my vision. After interviewing dozens of candidates, I found Marcus Thompson, a talented chef who had worked at several high-end establishments in Houston and was looking for an opportunity to help build something from the ground up. Marcus and I spent weeks developing the menu, testing recipes, and refining dishes until we had a selection that perfectly represented what I wanted Romano's to be: approachable but elevated, familiar but surprising, comforting but sophisticated. The opening was set for a Thursday evening in October, exactly 2 years after I'd started working on the concept. The weeks leading up to it were intense: staff training, supplier meetings, health department inspections, and marketing pushes. I was exhausted but exhilarated, terrified but confident. My family knew I was opening a restaurant, but they didn't understand the scope of what I was doing. To them, I was trying something new or taking a risk. My mother's comments ranged from, "I hope it works out for you," to "Restaurants are so risky, honey. Maybe you should keep your day job as backup." I hadn't kept my day job. I had invested everything, my savings, my time, my reputation, into Romano's. This wasn't a side project or a hobby. It was my career, my future, my chance to prove that I was capable of more than anyone had ever believed. The opening night was magical. We had a soft opening for friends, family, and local food bloggers, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. The food was exceptional, the service was smooth, and the atmosphere was exactly what I had envisioned. By the end of the evening, we had a waiting list for reservations and several requests for private events. But my family wasn't there. My parents had a prior commitment, Emma's law school graduation party, and while they sent flowers and a congratulations card, their absence spoke volumes about their priorities. Have you ever achieved something amazing but felt like the people who should be proudest of you just didn't get it? Let me know in the comments. Sometimes strangers celebrate our victories better than our own families. Romano's exceeded every expectation I had set for it. Within 6 months, we were booked solid most nights, had a waiting list for weekend reservations, and were getting rave reviews from local food critics. The Austin Chronicle named us Best New Restaurant, and Texas Monthly included us in their Rising Stars feature. But success in the restaurant industry isn't just about good reviews and full dining rooms. It's about consistent quality, exceptional service, and smart business management. I learned to balance the books, manage cash flow, and make the tough decisions that separate successful restaurants from the ones that close after a year. The financial side of the business was something I never discussed with my family. When they asked how Romano's was doing, I gave generic answers about being busy and enjoying the work. I didn't mention that we were turning a profit within 8 months, that we were already discussing expansion opportunities, or that I was earning more than I ever had in my marketing career. Part of me was protecting myself from their potential dismissal. If I told them Romano's was successful and they responded with the same lukewarm enthusiasm they'd always shown, it would hurt more than their ignorance. But part of me was also setting up for something bigger. I was building toward a moment when my success would be undeniable, when they would have to acknowledge what I had accomplished. That moment came sooner than I expected. 18 months after opening, Romano's was selected as one of the venues for Austin Restaurant Week, a prestigious event that showcased the city's best dining establishments. We were featured alongside restaurants that had been institutions for decades, places I had admired from afar when I was just starting out in the industry. The event was a huge success. We served over 200 guests during the week, including several local celebrities, food writers, and business leaders. The exposure led to catering opportunities, private event bookings, and discussions about opening a second location. But the real validation came when I received a call from the Austin Business Journal. They wanted to feature Romano's in their 40 Under 40 issue, highlighting young entrepreneurs who were making a significant impact in the local business community. The article would include a full-page spread about my journey from marketing director to restaurant owner, complete with photos of Romano's and an interview about my vision for the future. When the article was published, I finally felt like I had achieved something that even my mother couldn't dismiss or minimize. Here was third-party validation of my success, printed in a respected business publication, recognizing me as a leader in my field. I mailed a copy of the article to my parents with a simple note. Thought you might like to see this. Love, Rebecca. My father called that evening, his voice full of pride and amazement. Rebecca, I had no idea Romano's was so successful. This article makes it sound like you've built something really special. I have, Dad. I really have. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Your mother and I both are. But when my mother got on the phone, her tone was different. It's a nice article, honey. Though I do think they might have exaggerated some things. You know how these business magazines like to make everything sound more dramatic than it really is. Even in the face of undeniable success, she couldn't bring herself to give me full credit. The article became nice rather than amazing, and my achievements were attributed to journalistic exaggeration rather than my own abilities. That's when I knew that no amount of success would be enough for her. She had decided long ago that I was the daughter who was trying her best, and no evidence to the contrary would change her mind. But I was about to give her evidence she couldn't ignore. By the time Romano's celebrated its second anniversary, we had established ourselves as one of Austin's premier dining destinations. We had been featured in national food magazines, had attracted celebrity diners, and were consistently rated as one of the top restaurants in the city. More importantly, we were profitable, stable, and positioned for continued growth. I had also started giving back to the community in ways that felt meaningful to me. We partnered with local farms to source ingredients, hired from local culinary schools to give young chefs opportunities, and participated in charity events throughout the year. Romano's wasn't just my business, it had become a community institution. But my family's perception of my success remained frustratingly unchanged. When people asked my mother about her daughters, she would say, "Emma's a successful attorney at a top firm, and Rebecca owns a little restaurant." A little restaurant. As if Romano's was a neighborhood diner rather than a thriving business that employed 30 people and generated millions in annual revenue. The opportunity for perfect vindication came when my father's 55th birthday approached. He mentioned that he wanted to have a nice dinner with the family, somewhere special to celebrate. Emma immediately suggested Romano's, which surprised me. "I've heard such great things about Rebecca's place," she said during a family phone call. "Everyone at the firm says it's amazing. We should definitely go there for Dad's birthday." I was touched by Emma's suggestion and genuinely excited about the prospect of hosting my family at Romano's. This would be their first time dining at my restaurant, their first opportunity to see what I had built, to experience the atmosphere I had created, to taste the food I had conceptualized. But then my mother called me privately the next day. "Rebecca, honey, I've been thinking about your father's birthday dinner. Romano's is a lovely idea, but I'm concerned about the expense. I looked at the menu online, and the prices are quite high. I know you've been working hard at the restaurant, but I don't want you to feel pressured to pay for a meal you can't afford. Maybe we should choose somewhere more accessible." The condescension in her voice was unmistakable. She was suggesting that I, the owner of the restaurant, couldn't afford to eat at my own establishment. She was so convinced of my financial limitations that she couldn't conceive of the possibility that I might actually be successful. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I can afford to take the family to dinner." I'm sure you can afford something, sweetheart, but Romano's is quite expensive. Maybe we should go to that nice Olive Garden instead? They have a family-friendly atmosphere, and the portions are generous. She wanted to take my father's birthday dinner from my award-winning restaurant to Olive Garden. The suggestion was so insulting, so completely dismissive of everything I had accomplished, that I almost laughed. Let me worry about the expense, Mom. I'd really like to host Dad's birthday at Romano's. Well, if you're sure you can handle it, she said, doubt clear in her voice. But please don't feel like you have to order expensive wine or appetizers. We can keep it simple. That's when I decided to make this dinner unforgettable for all the right reasons. If you've ever had someone doubt your success even when you've made it, you know how frustrating this conversation was. Let me know in the comments about a time someone underestimated your achievements. The week leading up to my father's birthday dinner, I made special preparations. I blocked out the best table in the restaurant, a round table for 6 near the window that offered a view of the downtown skyline. I coordinated with Marcus to prepare a special tasting menu that would showcase Romano's at its finest. I also made sure that my entire front-of-house team knew this was a VIP dinner, not because I wanted special treatment, but because I wanted my family to experience the restaurant at its absolute best. I didn't tell my family about these preparations. As far as they knew, we were just going to have a normal dinner at Romano's, probably something simple and inexpensive that wouldn't strain my presumably limited budget. The day of the dinner, I spent extra time getting ready. I chose a sophisticated black dress that was professional but not too formal, paired with jewelry that was elegant but understated. I wanted to look successful without appearing to try too hard. I arrived at Romano's an hour before the reservation to make sure everything was perfect. The restaurant looked beautiful. The soft lighting created a warm, inviting atmosphere. The tables were set with crisp white linens and fresh flowers, and the gentle hum of conversation mixed with jazz music created the perfect ambience for a special celebration. Marcus showed me the specially prepared menu, and I approved the wine pairings that our sommelier had selected. Everything was ready for a meal that would demonstrate exactly what Romano's was capable of delivering. My family arrived right on time. My father looked distinguished in his navy blazer, clearly excited about celebrating his birthday at his daughter's restaurant. Emma looked beautiful in a burgundy dress, and she seemed genuinely curious about Romano's, taking in the decor and atmosphere with apparent appreciation. But my mother looked skeptical. She surveyed the restaurant with the expression of someone who was already calculating the cost of the meal and worrying about the expense. Her outfit, a conservative blouse and skirt, suggested she was dressed for a much more casual dining experience. "This is quite fancy, Rebecca," she said as we stood in the lobby waiting to be seated. "Are you sure this is appropriate for a family dinner?" Before I could respond, James, our maitre d', approached our group. James had been with Romano's since our opening, and he was one of the best front-of-house managers I had ever worked with. He was professional, knowledgeable, and had a gift for making every guest feel special. "Good evening," he said with a warm smile. "You must be the Martinez family. We're so excited to have you dining with us tonight." "Yes," my mother said. "We have a reservation for 6 at 7 o'clock. James smiled and nodded. "Of course. Right this way, please." But then, as we started to follow him toward our table, James paused and turned back to me with a look of recognition. "Ms. Martinez, it's wonderful to see you tonight. I wanted to let you know that Marcus has prepared something special for your father's birthday celebration. And the wine pairings are exceptional." The words hung in the air for a moment. My mother's eyes narrowed slightly, clearly confused by the interaction. Emma looked curious. My father seemed pleased but uncertain. "That's very thoughtful," I said to James. "Thank you for taking such good care of us." "Of course," James replied. "It's always our pleasure to welcome the owner's family to Romano's." The silence that followed James's words was deafening. I watched as the realization dawned on my family's faces, each of them processing the information at their own pace. My father's expression shifted from confusion to amazement to pride in the span of seconds. Emma's mouth fell open slightly, and she looked around the restaurant with new eyes, suddenly understanding that her sister owned this beautiful, bustling establishment. But my mother's reaction was the most satisfying. Her face went completely pale, and she stood frozen in the lobby, staring at me as if she had never seen me before. The confident, condescending woman who had called me hours earlier to warn me about the expense of eating at my own restaurant was speechless. "Rebecca," my father said, his voice filled with awe, You own this place?" "I do, Dad. I'm the owner and founder of Romano's." James, sensing the emotional weight of the moment, gave us a moment of privacy. "I'll give you folks a moment to get settled. Your table is ready whenever you are." Emma was the first to recover from the shock. "Rebecca, this is incredible. I had no idea. I mean, I knew you owned a restaurant, but I didn't realize it was this." She gestured around the elegant dining room, taking in the sophisticated decor, the professional service, the obvious success of the establishment. Romano's was clearly not the small, struggling restaurant she had envisioned. "How long have you owned this place?" my father asked, still processing the revelation. 2.5 years. We opened in October 2021. "And it's successful?" I smiled at the question. "Dad, we're one of the highest-rated restaurants in Austin. We've been featured in Texas Monthly, Food and Wine, and Bon Appetit. We're booked solid most nights, and we're already planning a second location." My mother finally found her voice. But when you said you worked in restaurants, I thought you meant you worked for someone else." "I thought you were just an employee." "I haven't been an employee for 3 years, Mom. I'm a business owner. I have 30 people on my payroll, and Romano's generates over $2 million in annual revenue." The number hit her like a physical blow. $2 million. That was more than Emma's law firm salary, more than both my parents' salaries combined, more than any of them had imagined I was capable of earning. $2 million. Emma repeated, her voice filled with respect and a touch of disbelief. "Last year, yes. This year we're on track to exceed that." James returned to escort us to our table, and we followed him through the dining room in stunned silence. I could see my family taking in every detail now, the quality of the furnishings, the professionalism of the staff, the obvious care that had been put into every aspect of the restaurant's design and operation. This is what vindication feels like, guys. When you've been underestimated your whole life, and then you get to show everyone exactly what you're capable of. If you've ever had a moment like this, I want to hear about it in the comments. Our table was perfect, positioned to provide privacy for our family conversation, while still allowing us to take in the full ambience of the restaurant. As we settled in, I watched my family continue to absorb the reality of what Romano's represented. The service that followed was impeccable. Our server, Maria, was one of our most experienced team members, and she delivered exactly the kind of professional, attentive service that had made Romano's famous. She presented the wine list with expertise, described the special tasting menu with enthusiasm, and made recommendations based on our preferences. My mother, who had been concerned about the expense just hours earlier, was now experiencing a 7-course tasting menu with wine pairings that would have cost over $150 per person at any other restaurant. But she wasn't paying for it. Her daughter, the one she had worried couldn't afford to eat here, was hosting the entire family. Each course that Marcus sent out was a masterpiece. The amuse-bouche was a delicate spoonful of butternut squash soup with truffle oil that immediately set the tone for the meal. The first course was our signature dish, pan-seared scallops with cauliflower puree and pancetta crisps that had been featured in Food and Wine. "This is extraordinary," my father said after tasting the scallops. "Rebecca, I had no idea you were involved in creating food like this." I work closely with our head chef, Marcus, to develop the menu. We focus on locally sourced ingredients and innovative flavor combinations. The scallops come from a sustainable farm in Galveston, and the cauliflower is from a farm just outside Austin. Emma was taking photos of each course, clearly amazed by the presentation and quality. "This is Restaurant Week level food," she said. "Actually, it's better than most of the Restaurant Week places I've been to. We participate in Austin Restaurant Week every year," I told her. This year, we were one of the featured restaurants. The conversation continued throughout the meal, with my family asking questions about the restaurant, the staff, the business, and my role in everything. For the first time in my life, they were genuinely interested in my work, truly curious about my achievements, and clearly impressed by what I had accomplished. But the most satisfying part was watching my mother struggle to reconcile her preconceptions with the reality in front of her. She had spent decades treating me like the daughter who was trying her best, and now she was dining at a restaurant that I had built from the ground up, eating food that I had helped create, surrounded by staff who treated me with the respect and deference reserved for a successful business owner. The wine pairings were exceptional, and by the time we reached the main course, a perfectly cooked filet mignon with roasted root vegetables and a red wine reduction, even my mother was relaxed and engaging with the experience. "This is the best meal I've ever had," my father said, raising his wine glass in a toast. "Rebecca, I am so proud of what you've accomplished. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand what you were building here." "Thank you, Dad. That means everything to me." Emma joined the toast. "To Rebecca, who apparently has been building an empire while the rest of us weren't paying attention." My mother raised her glass as well, though her expression was still complicated. "To Rebecca," she said quietly, I clearly had no idea what you were capable of." As the evening wound down and we lingered over dessert and coffee, the conversation turned to the future. My family wanted to know about my expansion plans, my goals for Romano's, and my long-term vision for the business. "We're looking at a second location in Dallas," I explained. "Probably in the Deep Ellum area. We're also considering franchising opportunities, though we want to make sure we maintain quality control." "Franchising?" Emma asked. "That's a big step." "It is, but we have the systems in place to support it. We've spent the last 2 years developing our processes, training our management team, and building our brand. We're ready to scale." My father leaned forward, clearly engaged. "What kind of investment would a second location require?" "About $800,000 for build-out, equipment, and initial operating capital. We're financing it through a combination of business loans and investor capital." "And you're confident in the return on investment?" "Based on our Austin location, we should break even within 12 months and be solidly profitable by year 2. The Dallas market is larger and more diverse, so there's potential for even better performance." I realized, as I answered these questions, that this was the first time my family had ever asked me about my business acumen, my financial planning, or my strategic thinking. They were finally seeing me as a serious businesswoman rather than their daughter who was trying her best. But my mother had been unusually quiet during this part of the conversation. Finally, She spoke up. "Rebecca, I owe you an apology," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've clearly been wrong about your abilities, about your success, about everything, really." The admission hung in the air between us. This was the moment I had been waiting for, dreaming of, working toward for years. My mother was finally acknowledging that she had underestimated me, that her lack of faith in me had been misplaced. "I appreciate that, Mom. I don't think you understand," she continued, her eyes filling with tears. "I've been dismissive of your achievements, your dreams, your potential. I've treated you like you were less capable than Emma, less likely to succeed, less worthy of my pride and support. And I was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong." The tears were flowing freely now, and I could see the genuine remorse in her expression. "You've built something incredible here. You've created jobs, served your community, achieved financial success, and earned recognition in your field. And I almost missed it entirely because I was so convinced that you couldn't possibly be as successful as you actually are." Emma reached over and took my hand. "I was wrong too, Rebecca. I've been so focused on my own career that I never really paid attention to what you were doing. I'm sorry." "And I'm sorry too," my father added. "I should have been more supportive, more interested, more involved. You've accomplished something remarkable, and we've been terrible at recognizing it." The apologies were genuine, and they meant more to me than I had expected. But the real victory wasn't in their words. It was in the fact that my success had become impossible to ignore or dismiss. Romanos spoke for itself, and no amount of preconceived notions or family dynamics could change that reality. There's something powerful about the moment when people finally see you for who you really are. Have you ever had a moment when someone realized they had completely underestimated you? Share your story in the comments below. The changes in my family's perception of me didn't end with that dinner. In the weeks that followed, I noticed a significant shift in how they talked about me, talked to me, and included me in family discussions. My mother, who had previously introduced me as my daughter Rebecca, who works in restaurants, now introduced me as my daughter Rebecca, who owns Romano's, one of Austin's most successful restaurants. The pride in her voice was unmistakable, and while part of me resented that it had taken such dramatic proof for her to respect my achievements, I was grateful for the change. Emma started referring clients to Romano's for business dinners and special events. She also began asking my advice about financial planning and business strategy, recognizing that I had expertise in areas she had never considered. My father, who had always been more supportive but equally unaware of my success, became one of Romano's biggest promoters. He brought colleagues and friends to the restaurant regularly, and I could see the genuine pride in his eyes when he told people that his daughter was the owner. But perhaps the most meaningful change was in how my family talked about success and achievement. Emma's law career was still celebrated, but it was no longer the only measure of accomplishment in our household. My parents began to understand that there are many paths to success, and that building a business from the ground up required skills and determination that were just as valuable as any law degree. The shift wasn't without its complications. My mother's newfound pride in my achievements sometimes felt performative, as if she was overcompensating for years of dismissiveness. There were moments when I caught her bragging about Romanos to friends with an enthusiasm that felt forced, and I had to remind myself that change, even positive change, takes time to feel natural. But the important thing was that the fundamental dynamic had shifted. I was no longer the daughter who was trying her best. I was the daughter who had succeeded, who had built something meaningful, who had proven that her dreams were not only realistic but achievable. 6 months after that pivotal birthday dinner, Romano's opened its second location in Dallas. The expansion was everything I had hoped it would be: successful, profitable, and a natural extension of what we had built in Austin. The Dallas location was larger than the original Romano's, with seating for 120 guests and a private dining room for special events. We maintained the same commitment to locally sourced ingredients, exceptional service, and innovative cuisine that had made Austin Romano's successful, while adapting to the preferences and expectations of Dallas diners. The opening was a major event in the Dallas restaurant scene. We had coverage from local food critics, a packed house for our soft opening, and a waiting list for reservations that stretched for weeks. Within 3 months, Dallas Romano's was performing even better than our Austin location had in its early days. But success brought new challenges. Managing 2 locations required systems and processes that were more complex than anything I had dealt with before. I had to hire additional management staff, develop training programs that could be replicated across locations, and maintain quality control while spending time traveling between Austin and Dallas. The workload was intense, but it was also exhilarating. I was building something bigger than a single restaurant. I was creating a brand, a company, a legacy that could potentially expand across Texas and beyond. My family support during this expansion phase was remarkable. Emma helped me review legal documents and contracts. My father provided advice on financial planning and business structure. Even my mother offered to help with marketing and social media management, though I politely declined that particular offer. The success of the Dallas location validated everything I had believed about Romano's potential. We weren't just a successful restaurant. We were a scalable business model with the potential for significant growth. As Romano's continued to grow and gain recognition, I found myself in a position I had never expected. I was becoming a voice in the Austin business community, someone whose opinion was sought on issues related to entrepreneurship, restaurant management, and women in business. I was invited to speak at business conferences, participate in panel discussions, and mentor young entrepreneurs who were starting their own ventures. The Austin Chamber of Commerce asked me to join their board of directors, and I was featured in a Texas Monthly article about successful female business owners. Each of these opportunities was both thrilling and humbling. I remembered being the young woman whose mother worried she couldn't afford to eat at an expensive restaurant, and now I was being recognized as a leader in my industry. But with success came responsibility. I was now employing over 60 people across both locations, and their livelihoods depended on the decisions I made. I was serving thousands of customers each month, and they trusted Romano's to provide them with exceptional experiences. I was representing not just my own achievements, but the potential of every young woman who had been told her dreams were too big. I took this responsibility seriously. We implemented profit-sharing programs for our employees, ensuring that the people who contributed to Romano's success shared in its benefits. We expanded our community partnerships, supporting local farms, schools, and charitable organizations. We created internship programs for culinary school students and business students, providing opportunities for the next generation of restaurant professionals. Romano's was no longer just my business. It had become a community institution, an employer, and a platform for giving back. Success isn't just about proving doubters wrong. It's about what you do with the platform you've built. If you've achieved something meaningful, let me know in the comments how you've used that success to help others. 2 years after that transformative birthday dinner, my family gathered again to celebrate another milestone, Romano's 3rd anniversary. This time, the celebration was different. Instead of surprising my family with my success, I was sharing it with people who had become genuine supporters of my journey. The anniversary party was held at the Austin location, and we invited our staff, regular customers, business partners, and community leaders who had supported Romano's from the beginning. It was a celebration not just of the restaurant's success, but of everything we had built together. My parents attended as honored guests, and I watched my mother interact with our staff, our customers, and our community partners with genuine warmth and pride. She had learned the names of our key employees, could discuss our menu with knowledge and enthusiasm, and spoke about Romano's achievements with the same pride she had once reserved for Emma's accomplishments. Emma gave a toast that evening that brought tears to my eyes. 3 years ago, I thought I knew what success looked like, she said. I thought it was about titles and salaries and recognition from prestigious institutions. But watching Rebecca build Romano's has taught me that real success is about creating something that matters, serving your community, and having the courage to pursue your vision even when other people don't believe in it. Rebecca, you didn't just build a restaurant. You built a legacy. The evening was perfect, but the moment that meant the most to me came when my mother pulled me aside for a private conversation. Rebecca, she said, I need to tell you something that I should have said years ago. You have always been extraordinary. Your determination, your creativity, your ability to see possibilities that other people miss, those qualities were always there, even when you were young. I failed to recognize them, and I failed to nurture them, and I'm sorry. She paused, collecting her thoughts. I think I was so focused on conventional markers of success that I couldn't see the unique kind of success you were capable of achieving. Emma's path was familiar to me. Good grades, prestigious college, professional career. I understood that path, so I valued it. But your path was different, and different scared me. I thought if I didn't encourage your dreams, I'd be protecting you from disappointment. Instead, I was just limiting your potential. Mom, you don't need to. Yes, I do, she interrupted. I need you to know that I see you now. I see your talent, your achievements, your impact on this community. I see that you've built something meaningful and beautiful and successful. And I am so proud to be your mother. The conversation was healing in ways I hadn't expected. I had achieved the external validation I had been seeking, but this internal reconciliation with my mother was equally important. She hadn't just acknowledged my success, she had acknowledged me as a person, recognized my inherent worth, and apologized for the years when she had failed to see it. Looking back on this journey, I've learned several important lessons that I want to share with anyone who has ever felt underestimated or overlooked. First, other people's limitations are not your limitations. My mother's inability to envision my success didn't make me less capable of achieving it. Her narrow definition of success didn't make my version of success less valid. When people tell you that your dreams are too big or unrealistic, they're often revealing more about their own limitations than yours. Second, vindication is satisfying, but it shouldn't be your primary motivation. The moment when my family realized I owned Romano's was incredibly fulfilling, but it wasn't what sustained me through the long hours, difficult decisions, and challenging moments of building the business. My passion for the restaurant industry, my desire to create something meaningful, and my commitment to serving my community were much more powerful motivators than proving anyone wrong. Third, success creates its own responsibilities. When you achieve something significant, you become a role model whether you intended to or not. You have an obligation to use your platform wisely, to lift others up, and to create opportunities for people who are facing the same doubts and dismissals you once faced. Fourth, forgiveness is powerful, but it doesn't require you to forget. I've forgiven my mother for the years when she didn't believe in me, but I haven't forgotten the lessons those experiences taught me about resilience, determination, and self-reliance. Those qualities, developed during the difficult years, were essential to my eventual success. Finally, the best revenge really is living well. I didn't set out to prove my mother wrong. I set out to build something meaningful and successful. The vindication was a byproduct of my achievements, not the goal. When you focus on excellence rather than vindication, you create something that speaks for itself. Today, Romanos operates 4 locations across Texas, with plans for expansion into other states. We employ over 150 people, serve thousands of customers each month, and have become a recognized brand in the restaurant industry. We've been featured in national food magazines, won multiple awards, and established ourselves as a leader in sustainable dining practices. But the numbers, while impressive, don't tell the complete story. Romanos has become more than a business. It's a community gathering place, a launching pad for young culinary professionals, and a platform for supporting local agriculture and charitable causes. I've also become involved in mentoring other entrepreneurs, particularly women who are starting businesses in male-dominated industries. I speak at conferences, participate in mentorship programs, and invest in startups founded by underrepresented entrepreneurs. The platform that Romanos has given me comes with the responsibility to help others achieve their own version of success. My relationship with my family has continued to evolve and improve. Emma and I have become genuine friends and supporters of each other's careers. My father is one of my most trusted advisors, and his business acumen has been invaluable as Romanos has grown. My mother has become one of Romanos' most enthusiastic ambassadors, and while our relationship will always be complicated by those early years of dismissal, it's also stronger now because it's based on mutual respect rather than her tolerance of my perceived limitations. The young woman who was told she couldn't afford to eat at an expensive restaurant is now the owner of multiple expensive restaurants. The daughter who was dismissed as trying her best is now recognized as a successful entrepreneur and community leader. The dreams that were once considered unrealistic have become reality. If you're someone who has been underestimated, dismissed, or told your dreams are too big, I want you to know that those voices don't define your potential. Your success is possible, your dreams are valid, and your achievements can be bigger than anyone imagines. Don't let anyone else's limitations become your own. Success, I've learned, is not a destination but a journey. Romanos continues to grow and evolve, and so do I. We're currently developing a cookbook that will share our signature recipes and the stories behind them. We're also planning a cooking show that will showcase not just our food, but our commitment to sustainable practices and community engagement. I'm also working on a business book about entrepreneurship in the restaurant industry, sharing the lessons I've learned about building a successful food service business from the ground up. The book will include practical advice about everything from menu development to staff management, but it will also address the psychological challenges of entrepreneurship, dealing with doubt, overcoming setbacks, and maintaining vision in the face of skepticism. The restaurant industry continues to evolve, and Romanos is evolving with it. We're exploring new technologies, adapting to changing consumer preferences, and finding innovative ways to serve our community. The business that started as a way to prove my capabilities has become a platform for continuous growth and learning. But perhaps the most important lesson I've learned is that success is not just about individual achievement. It's about creating value for others. Romanos succeeds because we provide exceptional experiences for our customers, meaningful employment for our staff, and support for our community. The validation I once sought from my family pales in comparison to the satisfaction of knowing that Romanos makes a positive difference in people's lives. My mother was wrong about my limitations, but she was right about one thing: I am trying my best. The difference is that my best turned out to be much better than anyone, including myself, had imagined possible. To everyone who has ever been told they're not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough, your critics are wrong. Your potential is not limited by their imagination. Your success is not constrained by their expectations. And your achievements can be greater than anyone believes possible. The little girl who was overlooked at family dinners grew up to own the restaurant. The young woman whose dreams were dismissed as unrealistic turned those dreams into reality. The daughter who was told she couldn't afford an expensive meal became the owner of the establishment. That's not just my story. It's a reminder that all of our stories are still being written, and the next chapter can be whatever we have the courage to make it. Thank you for following this journey with me. If this story inspired you, motivated you, or reminded you of your own potential, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And tell me in the comments about a time when you proved someone wrong or achieved something others thought was impossible. Your story matters, and your success is proof that dreams can become reality. Rebecca Martinez is the founder and CEO of Romano's Restaurant Group, which operates 4 locations across Texas. She is also a speaker, mentor, and advocate for women in business. Her book, Building from the Ground Up: Lessons in Restaurant Entrepreneurship, will be published next year.